Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Sinothando Mkhize and this is Blooming. I'm very excited to introduce this new segment to the channel, and it will be called Read of the Month. So basically what happens in this segment is that every month at the beginning of the month, I will post a video reflecting on whatever book it is that I read in the previous month. So this came about because I challenged myself sometime last year during my sabbatical. I challenged myself to read at least one book a month. So you'll realize as we go through the months that the only books I'll be reviewing are self-development books or memoirs, and this is because I really love this genre. If you want to hear more about why it is that I love these particular genres, you can head on to my Instagram, and if you don't follow me, please do follow me on Instagram. So in today's video I am going to be reflecting on this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was the first book that I read in my sabbatical, and let me tell you guys, this is the book. It literally changed my life. And as you can see, it's a very thick book, and initially I thought I would be able to go through the entire book, but as I was writing down my notes I realized that it's too big a book, so I'm only going to take the first 3 chapters. So as you can tell, it's about habits, and Stephen R. Covey, the author of the book, he talks about 7 fundamental habits that are rooted in principles that each and every one of us should live by in order to live an effective life where we are the best that we can be. But the way that he divided it is that the first 3 habits have to do with your relationship with yourself, right? And then the second 3 habits have to do with your relation with other people. And then the very last habit, which is the 7th habit, right, is about renewal. And today I'm only going to speak about the first 3 habits. Firstly, because those are the 3 habits that spoke the most to me when I was reading the book. And those are the 3 habits that are the foundation. Yes, that are the foundation, because as you know, you cannot fix your relationship with other people when your relationship with yourself is still messed up. Do you know what I'm saying? But then anyways, just an overview of the 7 habits. The first habit is be proactive, and the second habit is begin with the end in mind, and the third habit is put first things first. I'm going to speak about those. But then to go through the other habits that I'm not going to go into in today's video, we have think win-win. And this one is basically about when you relate to people, we must not have that scarcity mindset of only one of us can win. We must always look for a situation where both of us can win. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This one is pretty self-explanatory. It teaches empathy. It teaches empathy, that we should be people that seek to understand before we can be understood. And on the point of empathy, he differentiates between empathy and sympathy, which is that in sympathy there's a sense of agreement. In sympathy, it's more than I understand what you feel and how you see things. It also adds the part of I also agree, because that's how I would feel if I was in a situation. And then with empathy, he says that you don't need to agree with the person in order to empathize with them. We usually shy away from empathy because we feel like it threatens what we stand for. We feel like it means that we believe less in what we believe in. But you can empathize fully, understand fully, without agreeing at all with the person. Anyways, and the last point is synergy, which basically is about creative cooperation. That in order to achieve greatness, there has to be cooperation. To run away from the idea that you must be alone, and that you must do things alone, and that things are best when you do them alone, but rather to embrace the idea of cooperation. And then renewal, which is sharpening the saw, continuing to develop yourself, continuing to learn, continuing to stretch your mind, to think outside the box, your normal box. But if you want to know more about those other chapters, please do check out the book. Right, so let me just get into habit 1, 2, and 3. So habit 1, it says be proactive, right? Before we get into proactivity, in the book they discuss determinism, and there are 3 largely accepted theories on determinism. Now determinism is basically an idea that tries to explain what makes you who you are. What makes you who you What makes you think the way you think? What makes you react the way you do? What makes you want the things you want? What makes you who you are? And with these types of determinism, we have genetic determinism, which basically says that the person that you are is passed down to you from generation to generation. That one, similar to the idea of if your father, your grandfather, someone in the family was an addict, you are also predisposed to being an addict. This one just goes to show that even characteristics and personality traits, they are passed down from generation to generation. And then the second type of determinism is psychic determinism, and this one says that your upbringing, your parents' parenting style, what you were exposed to as a child, that makes you who you are. That creates the desires and fears and concepts and ideologies that you believe in. It makes you who you are, right? And then the third type of determinism is environmental determinism, and that one basically says that your current circumstances make you who you are. You're like this because of your current financial situation or economic situation. So that the environmental one has to do a lot with what's happening in your life right now. Maybe it could even include the people that you hang around with in your life right now. They shape who you are at that time. And it is said that these types of determinisms or theories of who you are largely based on Pavlov's experiment with dogs, right? That we are conditioned to respond in a particular way to a stimulus. So after going through these types of determinism, he continues to say that we are different though from, for instance, the dogs that Pavlov used in his experiment, because as human beings we have special endowments, and these special endowments, he says, are self-awareness. We have self-awareness. We have the ability to examine the thought that we are having. So you could be having a thought and have a thought about that thought. We have imagination, which is basically the ability to create in our minds beyond our present reality. So you can imagine something that doesn't exist right now before you and that isn't real. And our conscience, which is deeper awareness of right and wrong, and our independent will, which is the ability to act based on self-awareness, free of all influences. So these are endowments that we are all aware of, right? But then when he wrote them down and he defined each one, it really made me realize, like there is definitely something special about being human and having the kind of mind that we have. And so he continues to say that because of these endowments, we have a special superpower, right? Because between the stimulus, which is what happens to us, whether it's genetic, it's upbringing, psychic, or it is environmental. So between the stimulus that we get and the reaction that we have, that we have to the stimulus, humans have the special ability to decide, to choose. We have the freedom to choose, and this freedom to choose is what makes us different from other animals, for instance, and it's what gives us the power to determine who we are beyond what genetics say we must be, beyond what environmental factors say we must be. And I remember when I read this part of the book, I was a bit, I wanted to fight with Stephen R. Gangane, because I was thinking to myself, Bangabana, are you basically just saying that if you will yourself enough, then you won't be affected by trauma? If you will yourself enough, then you won't be affected by what happens to you, by abuse, by whatever. I don't know, because I believe so much in seeking help. I believe so much in therapy. I believe so much in validating people's traumas, right? Because this felt a lot like he was saying, those who choose to be affected by trauma, they choose it for themselves. And I was like, I don't know if I agree with you. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought of it as these tools that I believe in. I decided to see them as what those tools do is that they empower your freedom to choose. That yes, we do have the freedom to choose, but those tools, they empower us to choose. I often think of this example when it comes to freedom and empowerment to actually live out that freedom. Imagine a child ohlala ezilalini, and there is ohlala ezilalini, and according to the Constitution of South Africa, it is his human right to education, his human right to go to a school. But if the school is far away and there is no way for him to get to school, then even though he has the freedom, he doesn't have the power, or is not empowered to exercise that freedom. And so it's null and void, essentially. And that's basically how I thought about it, that yes, we have the freedom to choose, right? But then we have tools and resources and help that help us to be able to have the power to actually exercise that freedom to choose our own fate, and not have the person that we are be determined by all these factors. From the book, it also just gave me the courage to see and understand that it's also largely in my hands. Who I am is largely in my hands. Now we move to how he defines proactivity. He says that proactivity is taking initiative and knowing that you are responsible for your own life. This book in this chapter particularly came in my life during the sabbatical. Like I said, it came at a time when I was utterly unhappy, super unhappy to the core of me with the way that my life had shaped out. Feeling trapped as well, feeling like I cannot take a different path because this is the path that has been laid out for me. This is the path that has always made sense to me. This is the path I have been groomed to want to take. So what do I mean I am unhappy in this path? So I felt so trapped. But came this concept of you are the one responsible for your life. You are the architect of how your life turns out. Let me continue with the book. So in his definition of proactivity, he was basically saying that therefore we are not to make excuses using the other types of determinisms, because ultimately you are responsible for you. And then a quote from page 99 of the book. It says, so this is about making and keeping commitments, right? It says, as we make and keep commitments, even small commitments, we begin to establish an inner integrity that gives us the awareness of self-control and the courage and strength to accept more of the responsibility for our own lives. Guys, this spoke to me so much, because I was at a point where I was not showing up for myself at all, not in the least, not in the small or the big things. I was not showing up for myself, and I had lost trust in my ability to show up for myself. The one way that I would describe it when I was going through my sabbatical was that I felt weak, like a weak human being who could not take care of herself, who did not belong here, who shouldn't be even on this earth, because weak people cannot survive on this earth. So I was at that point, right? I was at that point where I was scared to dream, to want something for myself, because I felt like I wasn't going to show up for myself anyways. And so when this part of the book came about making and keeping commitment, whether small or big, that when you start building the habit of showing up for yourself, not only for just yourself, but making your word count for something even with other people, you then get the courage and the strength. I need to say I felt weak, and what I needed was the courage and the strength. Showing up for yourself, right? You get the courage and the strength to accept more of the responsibility of your own life. I felt trapped, and I did not want to accept responsibility for my life. I didn't want to take it. I don't want to take the responsibility into my life, but it was that at a point where it was either I did that, or I was really going to go to the pits. Like, I was already at the pits, right? But I was going to go to the basement of the pits, if you know what I mean. And I cannot tell you how transformative it was. From feeling so weak and defeated to feeling so capable and strong and courageous. That was the quote that really spoke to me the most in this part of the book, which is be proactive. take charge of your life. And then the second habit is to begin with the end in mind. Now, the way that he defines this part of this habit rather, it is to begin today with the image or picture or paradigm of the end of your life as your frame of reference. So with each day that you take your frame of reference yako is what you would like your life to look like in the end. This reminded me so much of Oprah's favorite question to ask at the end of every interview. She always asks, so what do you want to be remembered for? And the magnificent people that she always has on her show always have some kind of a picture of what they want to be remembered for. And maybe thinking about what you'll be remembered for when you die is a bit too far for you to think of. I know it is for me. Like, I can't think of that right now. Like, oh my god, when I die? So this is when I also decided to include this tweet that has been all over, right? It says, visualize your higher self. Imagine the woman you want to be. Think of what her daily life, habits, and routines would be like. Start building on them, step by step and day by day. You don't become her like magic, you build her. So that tweet summarizes literally everything that Stephen R. Covey says in that book. This part of begin with the end in mind has to do with vision. Have a vision for your life. Have a vision of where you want to take it, of who you want to be. And then there's the part in the book where, in this particular chapter, where he speaks about two creations. So his point is that in everything that exists, there are two creations. There's the creation that is mental, the first creation that is mental, that is the vision that happens in your head. And then there is the creation that is physical, the physical manifestation of the first creation, that's the second creation. And then he goes on to make different examples, like building a house, like even a conversation, your reaction to what somebody else says. It first happens in your head and then it happens physically. You can think of whatever example. You will be able to see Ubuti, Nyani, everything has like two creations, right? And then he says that whether you know it or not, the person you become in the physical and in the reality, that is your second creation, is informed by your first creation. I think that makes logical sense, right? And then he cautions and he says that we are either the second creation of our own proactive design, or we are the second creation of other people's agendas, circumstances, or past habits. This is what he calls the default script, that if you don't take the time to be proactive enough to create your own vision, to write down your own first design, to be the person who comes up with the blueprint of your own first design, then you fall onto the default design. There's always a default design. By not deciding to take action, you decided to go with the default design. But this default design is informed by other people's agendas, other people's projections, especially those of fear onto you, your circumstances, or even your past habits. This default design is that. So if you're not willing to be proactive, that means that's what you're choosing. And so that's basically why it's so important to begin with the end in mind. Another big part in the chapter that is discussed is personal mission statement. Now I won't go into personal mission statement because I went through that in my first video that spoke about setting intentions. A huge part of that video spoke about personal mission statement. So if you haven't watched that video, please do go check it out right now. And also, if you are enjoying this video so far, please do hit the like button, comment down below what have you heard so far, what has spoken to you the most so far, and also share. If you like it, chances are your friends like it, chances are your peers like it, so please do share the video. And moving on, the last thing that I'm going to speak about is the third habit, which is put first things first. So habit 1 says that you are the creator, you are in charge. Habit 2 is the first or mental creation. As the creator, work on that. And then habit 3 now deals with the second creation, the physical creation. So right now on the screen, I'll show a diagram, a time management matrix diagram. Before we go into this diagram, I'd like to just quickly explain 2 types of activities, right? So you have urgent activities, and these activities are the ones that require your immediate attention, and they press on us. Even though they're not important, they press on us. They want us to pay attention right now. And then there's important. Important has to do with results. Well, according to this matrix, yeah? It has to do with results. So if something is important, it means it contributes to your mission, values, and high priority goals. And another thing to note is that we react to urgent matters, right? Whereas important matters that are not urgent require more initiative, more proactivity. When something is important but not urgent, it requires you to stand up and decide to get it done. Whereas the other one, it happens to you and you react to it. Hope that makes sense, right? So with that being said and that being explained, I'd like us to now actually look at the matrix, right? So as we can see, we have different quadrants, and the first quadrant is the quadrant where it's both important and urgent. These will be things that have significant results but also are urgent. So normally these will be your crises, or a problem that needs to be solved now, or a deadline to your assignment, your test, whatever deadline you might have, right? So these are urgent and important. These fall under quadrant 1. And then quadrant 2, or rather let's go to quadrant 4, which is the opposite. It's not important, neither is it urgent. Now these are your leisure activities, maybe watching a movie, watching a series, wasting time, napping when you're not tired, napping when you haven't done anything. Okay, basically those are the type of activities that fall under quadrant 4. And then you have quadrant 3. Quadrant 3 are urgent but not important. These are the ones that are the most dangerous, yeah? This is when you are reacting to things that are urgent, assuming that they are also important, like those phone calls I'll be talking about, those text messages that you feel like you have to reply to right now, that YouTube notification, okay, that a video was just dropped and you feel like you need to watch it immediately. Those are the ones that feel important but aren't. They just want your urgency, right? And then now I'm going to get to the second quadrant, which is the most important quadrant. And these are the important things that are not urgent. Now, these are the stuff that we know we need to do, but we somehow seldom get around doing because they are not urgent. These are things like building relationships, writing a personal mission statement, long-range planning, exercising, preventative maintenance, preparation. Those are the type of things, right? For instance, starting on an assignment that's due 3 months from now. It's important but not urgent, right? So you know you have to do it, but you don't until it's a week, until you have a week left. Now it's no longer urgent. No, now it's no longer not urgent. Now it's urgent. Now you're in crises. Now you're in crisis management. So basically, the whole reason why I had to go into all these types of activities is that think carefully about your activities and see which quadrant do they fall under. And then what Stephen R. Covey continues to say is that effective people spend most of their time on activity 2. Activities that are not urgent but are important, right? These activities, first of all, the more time you spend on these activities, the less time you spend managing crises. Not that crises won't be there, they'll be there, but the less time you spend doing that, right? And then the more, obviously, the other 2, the things that seem urgent but aren't really, and the time wasters, complete, like, why are we doing that? If you want to be an effective person and if you want to bring your vision to life, it most probably will need you to do quadrant 2. But the thing about quadrant 2 is that it requires you to be a proactive person. So you need to accept that responsibility over your life. Another big part of making your vision come true, or making the time, because now we're talking about time management, I need making the time to actually make your vision and your goals and your whatevers to come true, is that you have to learn to say no to the urgent but not important activity. And then, according to the book, it says, even when the urgent is good, the good can keep you from your best. This got me because I feel like every time something is good or it has a positive, you feel inclined to say yes to it. But what if that good is keeping you from your best? And then what? Is it still worth it to say yes instead of saying no? And then he continues to say, it's almost impossible to say no to the popularity of quadrant 3 activities, which are those that are urgent but not important, or to the pleasure of escape to quad 4, which are not urgent, neither important, if you do not have a bigger yes burning inside. So basically, it's harder to learn to say no to, to those other stuff that you're supposed to say no to, if you don't have a bigger yes burning inside of you. And then the last quote that I'm going to read today, last quote. So Stephen R. Covey asked people a question, right? He was like, if you were to fault yourself in one of the 3 areas, which would it be? So if you had to choose something that you're really bad at, what would you say you're bad at? Are you bad at prioritizing? Are you bad at organizing around those priorities? Or do you lack discipline to execute those priorities? To execute the plans that you put out for yourself, right? Then he says that most people say their main fault is a lack of discipline. On deeper thought, I believe that this is not the case. The basic problem is that their priorities have not become deeply planted in their hearts and minds. They haven't really internalized habit 2. Now, if we put this together with the bigger yes quote. So when I read this, I was really at a time when I was bashing myself because of lack of discipline. And I told you that I got into a point where I was not showing up for myself at all. And I would bash myself because I was just like, if I could just stick to the plans I made, if I could just stick to them, if I could just have the self-discipline to stick to them, everything would be fixed. And I would bash myself so much for lack of discipline. I would feel so guilty, and I would go through a cycle of guilt and feeling bad and depressed and sad, blah, blah, blah. But then when I read this, I was like, because he said that for most people, it's not that you lack discipline. For most people, it's just that your bigger yes is not the yes. You don't have the bigger yes. And that's when I realized, Duguti, I need to find that bigger yes. I need to find that vision really aligns with my purpose on earth. And that's when this lack of discipline will even be solved. And honestly, that's what led to this break. That's the biggest reason why I took the break. This is the biggest reason why I took the break. I took the break because I needed to find my bigger yes. I needed to find that, so that I can be an expression of my truest, most purposeful self and most happy. That brings us to the end of this book. I highly, highly recommend to anyone of any age to check out this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It changed my life. If you are ready to take the necessary steps, if you are ready to change. My biggest thing is that I was just tired. I was tired of being a bottom feeder. I was tired of being mediocre at best. I was tired of that. I was tired of merely surviving. I needed to thrive. And I was ready to do something about it. If you're ready to do something about it, start with this book. This is the book to start. Thank you so much for watching this video so far. I really hope all the insights that I shared about my own personal experience, insights of the book as well, they inspire you to want to make a difference, to want to be your best, to want to go pick up this book and read it. And with that, see you guys next week.